Hello and welcome to this edition of Consciousness Raising Online. I'm doing this a little different today, as you can see me. All right, because I'm doing what I'm calling some talking points. I really want to be relatively short, but be very specific about uh, two concepts, because I believe that it's very necessary for us to have a much better understanding about these concepts so that we can deal with what's going on in the world today. Now, when I'm doing this live, it's actually the 1st of March, 2020. But it shouldn't matter whenever you see this or listen to it, because hopefully the concepts will help you deal with whatever's going on in the world at that time. A couple of things are going on right now that are just like crazy, really. For an example, the whole globe, the whole earth is actually going through some changes right now because of a virus. It's being called a virus. It's called the coronavirus. When it first got named or first got talked about, people likened it to a beer or something, Corona. But and then there was some confusion because it was thought that it was brand new, but it's actually one of many coronaviruses. In fact, this one got its own special name. It started, as far as we know, it started in China, but it's now spread to many different countries. And it's kind of weird. Let me just share this with you, this part, because it talks about, it's called the coronavirus, and coronavirus makes people sick, usually with a mild to moderate upper respiratory tract illness, similar to a common cold. Its symptoms include a runny nose, cough, sore throat, headache, and a fever that can last for a couple of days. For those with a weakened immune system, the elderly and the very young, there's a chance the virus could cause a lower and much more serious respiratory tract illness. Now, like pneumonia or bronchitis even. It has killed some people, and although, to some degree they say, well, it can be, it can actually go away on its own because they don't have it. They don't have a vaccine for it, they say. But what's really interesting to me is that the confusion over how it is spread. So far, they haven't been able to totally nail down whether it's spread by through the air or whether it's spread through touch. Like, for an example, somebody's infected and say they cough or spit or whatever, and it goes on to something like a table or a dresser or a door or whatever, and then you come along, you touch it, and then you can touch your face, put your hand up to your face, and that passes. That's what they say, it can be passed that way. But they're not sure now if it might actually be airborne. If it's airborne, then that means that somebody just coughs, and if you're in the vicinity, you can catch it. So, like I say, they don't know for sure. So in some places, they're panicking. In other places, like around the White House, he's saying, don't worry about it. It's just going to go away. And in fact, he said, the other day, he said, it'll be like a miracle. What can I say? And then, I guess it was yesterday, he was saying, well, we haven't had anybody die in the United States, so don't worry about it. And that same day or this last night, somebody died in the United States. So, but the key is that, I love this. So what can you do to keep from getting the virus, what's the number one thing they say is wash your hands a lot. Wash them for 20 seconds with soapy water. And I find that very interesting because one of the things that we know from their own research and surveys and observations is that there's a particular group of people that are known for going to the bathroom, public restrooms, and not washing their hands before they leave. You know, it's known that. So to tell them to wash their hands even more is useless because they're not washing them now. So anyway, before I move on to my two concepts, I got to mention this because this was something that occurred that really is symptomatic of the times we live in. There was a college recruiter, and he went to this prestigious high school. They call it prestigious. I guess it's wherever it is. It's in Oklahoma, and in Oklahoma City. So here's this guy. He goes to this prestigious high school to recruit students, right? In fact, he visited the Harding Charter Preparatory School in Oklahoma City. And this guy gets there. And for whatever reason, he needed them to line up or whatever. Dig what he does. He tells them first to line up based on the color of their skin complexion. First, the lightest here, and then down to the darkest. And then he says, okay, now I need you to line up according to your hair, from the nappiest to the knot. And number one, the students were so blown away, they didn't know what the heck. And some of the teachers apparently went to crying and all of this kind of stuff because they were just shocked and didn't know what to do. I don't know what the problem was. All they had to do was tell him to get the hell out of there. Okay? Now, he's since been fired, but the damage was done. Because what he did, he put a slave auction move there. All right, all the light ones, y'all get down there first, and all y'all with the nappy hair, y'all go over there. And what did that have to do with recruiting? That's what the students were saying. They said, what's this got to do with recruiting? He said he didn't talk about his school hardly at all. He just told us to line up according to the colors and stuff. Actually, he was recruiting. He was telling y'all who ain't going to get to go there. So, ain't that a trip? Now, one of the things that's going on, by the way, for those who don't know, not only am I running live with me today in the screen, which I don't normally do, but I also am not coming up on the website where I normally would be. Okay. Now that's being worked on, but I'm doing it anyway because of the fact that I know it's being recorded, and it can be seen later on. Now, here's the deal. What I wanted to deal with today is two words. And the two words are think and feel. Think and feel. Okay? Now, why do I want to do that? I want to do it because of this. We have, very good. I'm coming up on Destiny now. Thank you. We have some serious issues right now, not just with the virus and not just with the elections coming up, but there's a lot going on in the country. And when you have an insane president That doesn't help. Not only is he insane, but he's got a lot of crooks around him. He has decimated the government, really, all the different offices and agencies that are supposed to be working for the people. He's decimated that, which is a serious issue right now with what's going on with this virus. That's a public health issue. And he has decimated the public health departments. But that's why I wanted to deal with these two words. I think they'd be very important for us to deal with and understand. The two words are think and feel. Think and feel. Now, why? Normally, we don't break down things into those two categories. Think and feel. Let's do this one first. If I say to you, let's take a subject, okay? If I say to you, what do you think about the virus? What do you think about the virus? Okay? And you can do it in your head. You don't have to answer me right directly, but these are questions I want you to answer in your own head. What do you think about the virus? Now, whatever you think about it, if I then change and say, how do you feel about the virus? Okay? The two are different. What you feel and what you think are different. Why is that important for us to understand? Because in many cases, I would say anywhere from 80% or more, they will be opposites. That what you think about something is different than what you feel about something. Now, first, let's deal with thinking. The definition of think is to have a conscious mind, to some extent of reasoning. In other words, you reason when you think. You remember or recall experiences, making rational decisions based on the information that you reason in your conscious mind. And that's what it means. To think is to have or formulate in the mind. For an example, think the happiest thought you can think right now. Shut your eyes and just think the happiest thought you can think. Okay? That's a thought. And you ponder on it, you reflect on things. If you have an issue, you want to think the matter through, to decide by reasoning, reflection, or pondering, thinking what to do, to use the power of the mind to understand, to find out, or decide. Okay? Now, feeling. Feeling is an experience. It's an emotion or sensation. To feel something, you have a belief or an impression, especially sometimes if you can't identify exactly where that feeling comes from. You just feel it, right? You can have feelings of heightened emotion. Now, the verb feel is to be conscious of an inward impression, a state of mind, a physical condition, a tone, a look, tactile property, like if you feel on some cloth, like the feeling of silk is different than the feeling of corduroy, right? Flavors, you know, taste is actually a feeling, okay? Spirit is a feeling. Smell, that's a feeling. It gives you a feeling, all right? So understand that there's a difference. Let's analyze that for a second. Here, let me have a sip of water. Now, let's say that let's say you're in a relationship, and in the relationship, the question comes up, how do you feel? Your significant other says, how you feel? You might say, well, about what? And they say, well, how do you feel about me? Okay? They're asking you to express an emotion, right? And you can say, oh, I feel good about you. I feel I love you. I have great feelings about you. And then if they say, what do you think about me? Now that's different than how do you feel about me? Now, if you're truthful, you might say, well, I think that you don't read enough. I think that you don't analyze things enough. Now, if you do that, you might hurt their feelings. Okay, although you're being honest, right? You feel you're being honest. But you're telling them what you think. You see the difference? How do you feel? What do you think? And as you go through your day, you're going to find that it's especially dealing with other people, that you can say, well, what do you think? And you don't be surprised if 9 times out of 10, they end up telling you what they feel. You say, well, on this project that we're working on, what do you think? Well, I feel we should do something different. See how they got switched up? They told you how they felt. They didn't tell you what they think. You see? And you say, well, what's the difference? Well, when somebody says, well, I feel we should do something different, if they were to tell you what they think, then they would be able to tell you to do something different how. Right? You see? If you say, well, what do you think? Well, I think that if we took A and put it on top of B and B on top of C, then we would be able to get to D. That's telling you what they think. When they say, well, I feel we should do something different, that's a feeling. That's an emotion. You see? That's not telling you what they think. You beginning to get what I'm saying? We're in a time period where, especially when we're dealing with these elections and things, you hear them all the time talking about these polls. Now, personally, I have not been polled, not once in my 50-something years as an adult. And as I talk to black folks, I can't find anybody black that gets polled. We don't never get polled, but they tell us what we're supposed to be feeling, right? I actually think there's a lot of conspiring going on, that within certain groups of people, they have been instructed to lie to the pollsters. Yeah, that throws the polls off, and it allows the media to be See, here's the thing. Remember this. The mainstream mass media, its primary objective or purpose is not to inform, but to instead sway public opinion. And as you watch what goes on, you'll see exactly what I just said. They're not trying to inform. They are attempting to sway public opinion. Inform would mean that I would give you the facts, enough facts for you to make up your own mind. But that's not what happens. You get snippets of bits of pieces of information and an attitude. Okay? How you supposed to feel about something. The people that are, their job is to be talking heads, what do? They spend a lot of time telling you what to think, right? They're swaying public opinion. And that's why you have such a messed up public discourse, is what they like to call it. We don't really have no discourse. Discourse means you have information and people thinking, discussing, analyzing, so that the truth can be discerned. That's not what happens in the United States. What you have are bits and pieces, sound bites that are there to sway you towards a particular opinion so that you will do certain actions. So, what I'm proposing is that I'd like for you to consider this. For the next week, I want you, and if you need to write it down, that's even better. But what I want you to do is to I'll say major decisions. And major decisions in this case might be deciding what you're going to eat for dinner, or if with your family, for an example. If you're responsible for feeding your family, what you're going to have for dinner, that's a major decision. And so what I want you to do is take every situation that you can recall to do where a decision must be made. I want you to analyze it enough to be able to determine what you feel about it and then what you think about it. And that's why I say writing it down may help, because what I want you to be able to do is write down how you came to make that decision. Did you make that decision based on what you felt, or did you make that decision based on what you thought? You see, because if you make it based on what you thought, that means that you analyzed it. That means you reasoned about it. You pondered it. Doesn't mean that you have to take all day, but it means you have to be conscious of what it is what is your objective? What is it that you want to accomplish? Okay? And so you want as many factors as possible to take into account. You reason with yourself, because you think about your own thinking. It's a process. It's called metacognition. Okay? And that's when a person exercises active control over their own cognitive processes. See, we're so used to being told what to think, we don't even realize what we have to do in order to think about our own thinking. You'd be amazed at how many people really can't figure out how they think. All they know is what somebody else told them, and a lot of times they're not even aware that that's what they're thinking. They're thinking about what somebody told them that they have accepted as fact. All you got to do is go to don't go. Just look at a rally, one of the Trump's rallies, and look at those people. He spews garbage out of his mouth, and they're sitting there with their mouths open, letting that manure go right into their mouth and down their throat, and they cheer it. They cheer it. It's the most sickening thing in the world. He had an event at the White House the other day, and it was supposed to be a celebration of, dig this, African American History Month. Now, I went off about this the other week because some media was saying that it's now called African American History Month, and I said, no, it's not. I'm not changing. it is still Black History Month. And there's a reason for that. African American History Month limits it to just the United States. And there's some people who say, no, once you got Africa in there, that includes. No, it doesn't. African American is specific, meaning limiting it. And so we use Black, and there's people who say, well, Black's not a race. No, it's a political designation. African American is not a race. We don't have the luxury, those of us who are out of the diaspora don't have the luxury of being able to, most of us aren't able to pinpoint exactly what nation or tribe or country or culture in Africa we are directly descended from. Plus, we've been so mixed that we are a mixture of many different cultures and nations and tribes in Africa. Okay? That's just a fact. So we get to claim the whole continent. Yeah, that's how that works. What I would like for you to do is to be able to figure out how many decisions you're making without doing what we should do, which is to think about it and analyze how we feel about it, and then make decisions based on the best information that we have analyzed and not just how we feel. Because if we do it based on feelings, it's why we end up messed up. Because feelings does not give us enough information to make a rational decision. Okay? And we need our young people, especially our young brothers, to understand how important that is. Because as we see, some of them make totally irrational decisions that make no sense. But what's happening is that they are not thinking. They're not thinking. They're being irrational because they're dealing with feelings. And if you mix alcohol and drugs with that, now you just feeling, you're not even conscious of what you're feeling. And then you wonder why they do stuff that's just stupid. Stupid. There have been some things here in Chicago in the last weeks, and all you can do is shake your head because what they did was so stupid. Their lives are counterfeited. And where it really hurts is if they took another Black person's life. That's happened with several women where dudes kill a woman, a Black woman, and it's just, it hurts. It hurts. And so they're not thinking. They're operating on feelings, and those feelings are being manipulated. So we need to make sure that they're learning how to think and understanding the difference between their feelings and their thoughts. And we can only do that if we do the same ourselves. So when you get angry, for an example, at your children, for an example, do you deal with them out of your feelings of anger? Or do you stop, allow yourself to calm down and become rational, and then think about the situation and then how best to deal with it? See, that's where the value of thinking comes in. Because if you thought about it, you'd be able to deal with it in a much better way for you and the child. Same thing with our mates. If something that they do makes us angry, that's not the time to try to deal with it while we're angry. We have to get the anger out of the way. Because if you're dealing with the anger, that's a feeling. And that's when we say and do things that we definitely regret later. And it does sometimes irreparable damage. So we want to learn to practice thinking. You know, when somebody says, well, I got to think about it, allow them to really think about it. Don't push them to make a decision Because if you do that, you're going to force them many times to make that decision based on how they're feeling. And if you've made them feel uptight, if you've made them feel anxious, yeah, then that can be a serious issue when it comes to that. You don't want them to base their decision based on their feeling if you've been poking at them, right? And plus, when we think, oh, it's so beautiful. The thoughts we think and the conclusions we get to are wonderful. Trust me, they're a whole lot better decisions than if we simply go with what we feel. Feelings can be manipulated so easy. I'll give you an example. Sometimes people go to a nightclub, and let's say they're lonely. They go there to meet somebody. And in the club, there's all these things, all these different things going on. For an example, there's the lighting, okay? The lighting distorts the reality. There's the music. And you know how music affects us. It affects our feelings, okay? Then there's how we look, how people are dressed. And let's be real, people dress provocatively, usually to show off their best assets, right? All right. And then there's another factor, the olfactories, how they smell. And when you, and then you toss some liquor in there with that, by the time the end of the evening rolls around, if we've been dealing with all that evening, the lighting, the clothes, the smells, the music, you're in a state of, you're in a state. And so if you make decisions, for an example, you decide that you're going to go with somebody for the night, and then you wake up next to them later on or the next morning, you say, ooh, how did I do that? Number one, they look totally different. They're acting totally different. You feel different. You think different. Why? Because you worked on your feelings and you didn't even realize your feelings were being manipulated by all of those different factors. Yeah. And more than one of us, I'm not the only one in the world, has realized, man, if I had been thinking, I wouldn't have made this decision. Right? So let's see if we can do this week. Whatever kind of way works best for you, but the objective is to see how many decisions you made this week based more about your feelings about it than your thoughts about it. And it's probably going to take you a few times to realize, oh, wow, I meant to think about it, but I had to make a decision quickly, so I went with my feelings. Because it takes some time to corral that, to get to the point of saying, wait a minute, how do I feel about it? And what do I think about it? You see? All right. Well, I appreciate you. And this won't be the last time you see me in person on here. We shall see how this works out. and I will continue with my series about the things that divide us as Black people. I did part 1 and part 2. I believe that I will get to part 3 next week, depending on how much is going on in the world. Oh, and the reason why I'm doing it, this is the other reason why I decided to do this today. I've been saying this more, and people have begun to hear me when I say it. The world is ending as we know it. The world is ending as we know it. That's why there's so much confusion and anxiety in the world, because most of us, we fight change. We don't want change. We want things, and you hear people say this, they want things to go back to normal. Sorry, normal is gone. There's a new normalcy being put into place. That's why it's so dangerous that we shouldn't allow certain things to become normalized. Lying by the President of the United States should not be allowed to be normalized. Jacking up the court system and the criminal justice system should not be allowed to become normalized. For you look up and you can't get any kind of, not even appearance of justice, because you've allowed corruption to become normalized. Okay? So, where we are is that the world is changing. We can't know what the new normal is going to be. We're in the process of making the new normal. Decisions we make, the elections, things like that, that's helping to form the new normal, the new world. And so that's what I mean when I say the world is ending as we know it. Come on, let's get into this future. Because we can have a good future if we understand that we make it. We make the future. All right? And as always, I say no justice, no peace, no love, KNOW.